Hello, ladies. I hope you are all doing well. I'm Lydia Ruth. Welcome to the Manse and to Homemaking Radio, a place where you can listen while you get something done at home. It might not always be about homemaking, but it'll be something that the homemaker will appreciate to help her focus on something else and maybe even increase her knowledge of something. And it's all based on my own observations or own experience, so don't take it all too seriously. It's just to entertain you. And if you would, please click the link in the description box and go to the page where I've put this video so that you can see the things that go with it. Like I might take a picture of all the books I mentioned, or I might put links to where you can get things that I have used in this particular broadcast. And so today I have so much to talk about, and I don't even know where to get started, and I never feel that I'm ready. I never feel that I'm really worthy of it because I make so many mistakes. And what is it that Emma said to Mr. Knightley? What is the good of being grown up if there's so much to improve? And I always feel like that. What's this big thing about being so vital if there's so much that I have to improve on? And I was thinking the other day, ladies, the things that used to make me feel good or make me calm before this current era where everybody is full of anxiety. Did you ever listen? Those of you who are vital will know what I'm talking about, especially you Canadians. Did you ever listen to the Bob and Ray radio broadcast? And they had one called Anxiety. And I will try to find it and put a link to it so you can go and listen to it on YouTube or somewhere else. And they talked about telling a story and warning you that it would bring on more anxiety, and there was da-da-da music and everything to make you feel the anxiety. But before this current onslaught of anxiety, there were many things we did. And can many of you who are now vital, those of you who grew up in the 40s and 50s, can you remember the last time when you were not anxious, when you were happy, when you felt good, when someone wasn't telling you bad news, when the media wasn't getting everyone upset constantly? And I wrote down a few things we used to do. I wonder if they gave us kind of a padding for, or a buffer for this current distress. And I listed a couple of things that used to put me at ease, and still do in a way, is an uncluttered house, knowing where everything is. And it becomes more difficult as you become more vital because you've got more archives, you've got more of your children's things, you've got more of the memories and more of the stages of life you went through, and you've got more of that stuff. And so the clutter can sometimes give you anxiety. But I like to also, I feel good when my kitchen's cleaned up and when the dishwasher's whirring away. I just have a feeling of accomplishment there, and I can relax. And that my laundry is clean and my bathroom is clean. Those are the three areas which I call the water areas that I like to make sure are clean. And sometimes I have to let them go if I have to or need to do something else. And so those are the things that used to give me calmness. And when I didn't have them done, I felt anxiety, and I would turn down going places, traveling, or just anything just so I could get that done first. Another thing that used to give me some kind of feeling of peace that just wafted over me was being engaged in correspondence. Just a little tiny note, addressing the envelope, putting the stickers on it, and sending it off gave me a feeling of great accomplishment. And there used to be a Victorian drawing of an envelope with wings on it, and you can see them all over the web when you look for line drawings of envelopes with wings. And it was said that the letters flew between, Jane and whoever, and so that was a common symbol. There was the letters with wings on them, and that was before, I believe, before mail was flown on airplanes. And then there was that if I have a confidence in my refrigerator and pantry that I'm going to have enough fresh food to put together a meal for 2 or 3 meals, not having to live on the edge of wanting to, having to run to the store for the very next meal or for the morning meals. And that always gave me a sense of peace when I was well stocked. And I don't mean a bunch of old dried and canned goods, but just really good, high quality things that, were perishable that I had to use. It always gave me a feeling of peace. Also, my albums and pictures put in, and a scrapbook caught up. And then the olden days, ladies, you remember, the scrapbooks used to actually be scraps of things we saved, a ticket to somewhere we went, or when the napkins came out, the colored napkins came out. A lot of you can remember those first Hallmark napkins that came out, and they had a beautiful picture on them. We used to save them and put them in our scrapbooks. If we went to let's say some kind of event at church, maybe a wedding or a baby, where you give gifts, and they would serve something to eat, and we would take the napkins home. And we'd also save invitations. They used to send us an invitation to something, and they were special, and we would put them in these scrapbooks when we got an invitation to something. And those things, I think, were reassuring, calming, and gave us a sense of being in track of and in charge of our lives. But today, the anxiety is so great we don't feel we have any kind of control. And so these things that I mentioned I went back and tried to find out, when was the last time that I knew that women, most of my friends, when I knew that they were happy, that they were content, and that their lives weren't going to have sudden shock and sudden changes. And it was way back, the last time I think was in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And I'll show you some of the things that we used, that we had, that were so helpful. We had little workbooks, and I don't know if you remember what a workbook is, but one of the first, I think, experiences many of you might have had with a workbook was a Bible study book. And it was for your Bible class, or you could order a Bible correspondence course, and it was just you'd read the little text. It would say, read this book in the Bible, and then answer these questions. What verse was this in, and what did this say? And you'd fill in the blanks, or you'd do a little crisscross puzzle. And so I remembered those workbooks, and I don't know why they felt so reassuring and calming, but remember I told you, now if you don't like Fascinating Womanhood, don't listen to this part. You can pause it and jump ahead. But she had a workbook, and it was for called The Fascinating Girl, and it was for girls that weren't married, and it was to prepare them to be homemakers and wives, mothers, and good counselors to their families, and creative and frugal and that sort of thing. So I wanted to show you something about it. Here's a page. Her book was the text, and this was the workbook. And sometimes you'd get a book that had the workbook in it, and that would be something like Christian Charm Course, which isn't a book, it's a work text. So the book is in here, and you'd read the text, and then you'd fill in the sections here. And it was talking, like this was saying, taking care of looking at myself spiritually. And it was questions about your character. And how to correct your heart, how to correct your mind. And I always said, no matter what your age, if you're feeling disconnected or disconcerted, or just not able to focus, or a little bit down, order one of these. Order a workbook that you used to have, and I would suggest this one with the red cover, because I like the older copies so much better. And take yourself through it. And if you won't agree with everything in these, I don't, but I just appreciated them because it was a look at yourself. It was how to self-improve. They even had a section in here on how to sit ladylike. And all the things that a queen or a princess would have to be trained in was for the ordinary person at home, and particularly the young girl. And I've heard women my age say, I just want to be a girl again. One lady told me recently, she said, I just want to be a girl again. I want to get a big hat and go walk on the beach. And I said, well, sure, do that. It's never too late. And this one was a comparison. Here's a page that was a comparison between the feminine and the masculine. And then there were poems, and there were other interesting things in it. And this one was on posture, and it has, head, shoulders, back, knees, feet, etc. But they would put scriptures with it, which were like figures of speech type of things to refer to those things. And this one was about table manners, and there was a quiz over here where you'd fill in the boxes. And so you can make workbooks for yourself. And the reason I suggest it is because I was challenged by one of my grandchildren to talk more about how to make winter friendly. And we are in winter now, and those of you in Australia can just use it. I'll write down making winter friendly on the post so that you can find it when your winter comes. Making winter more friendly. It's no trouble. You don't have to talk about this for summer because it speaks for itself. It just beckons, it welcomes, it calls you out. And it's just all right there with the birds singing and the sun shining and this wonderful, the wonderfulness of it all. It kind of tells you what to do. But winter, some of us just need a little more help. And so I would suggest get yourself together some workbooks. And I started making some for my descendants. But I wanted to show you this one because it was the one for girls by Helen Andelin. And it was called the Workbook for Students. And you can find it apparently still. Dixie Andelin still publishes it. I would suggest you read it. If you didn't, and to have an open mind about it, you don't have to agree with it all. But what I liked was, if you have a little motivational poem here, or this was one of those just for today things, and you had to fill it out, looks like 5 times. And it was just for today. I will try to improve my mind. And like I've told you, on your list for getting ready, do one thing to either to read aloud or to learn to sing a song or do something like that. Do one thing every day and learn something useful and look your best. And she says be agreeable, but being agreeable did not mean agree with everything. What it meant in the olden days was be kind, be nice, be tactful, be easy to get along with, and don't be, hasty, sharp replies, and don't be always contradicting. That's what that meant. Being agreeable did not mean you have to agree with something that is wrong, or you have to agree to sanction something, believe in something that you don't. That's not what it meant. It meant being nice. And it says here, just for today I will have a program which I might not follow, but I still will have it. And it will save me from 2 enemies, hurry and indecision. And that's why I tell you to make yourself a notebook, make yourself some lists. The lists kind of help organize your thoughts and your mind and settle your brain a little bit. And I would say that having that list is kind of anchoring. It makes you realize, I can always go back and look at my list. If someone distracts me or takes away my thinking, I can always go back and look at this list. And that's why I think it's so important. And sometimes when I used to get around somebody or someone used to get around that was wanting to be disturbing or argue or challenge me because of my beliefs on the role of homemaking and homeschooling and other things, they would get to talking, and some people can talk to you and you don't know what happened to your mind. They look at you and somehow they can stun you. And all the things that I wanted to do when they were gone, I couldn't think of what in the world was I going to do, because they can really get in your head. So I got to where I was taking my little book around with me. Someone got to talking, I'd start looking at my book again, and I'd write in it too of things I needed to do just to get my brain back in that mode. And it's always best to work. If you're a homemaker, you're going to be working alone most of the time. You may have helpers, but in the end, you're the one that organizes it and monitors it. So I think it's really important to have that list. And I liked it that she had put it in there. And another one was, I will try to improve and exercise my character in 2 ways. And I will not advertise it or tell it. I won't say, like, get up in the morning, well, today I'm going to try to have a better, not talk so much, or today I'm going to try not to eat so much, or today I'm going to try to get a job completely done without complaining. Don't say that to anybody, because if you fail, you feel that you can be totally unmotivated. So please don't tell anyone. But she has this, I liked this workbook. It was personal. It made things personal for we ladies and for us girls. And for several generations, women had, back in the 1800s, there were still some what they called finishing schools, and it meant to be polished, to be well finished. It didn't mean, what people made fun of it all the time later on, but there were decades where there wasn't anything for young women to strive towards, because they were being taught just to get their education over with and then go to work, and that and the character gradually faded away and wasn't even in the schools. So this was the first book I had ever seen, and I must have been 17 when I first read this workbook by Helen Andelin for, it was called The Fascinating Girl. And later on they changed the name, but she said it was a mistake. She had a newsletter she sent out, and one of the things she mentioned was she wished someone had not counseled her to call it the new name or something. But anyway, it had the same information in it. And then there was a list here, just for today, I will not be anxious. I will not be afraid to enjoy what is beautiful and give my best. And so there were all these little things you could, and what we valued this workbook so well that we could try to get somebody to make a copy of the page we were supposed to do, so we could just fill the page in, or we would put a piece of lined paper right inside of here and answer the questions on a new piece of paper, so we wouldn't have to mark on the book. Really good paper too. I want to see if there's anything else here. Okay, I wanted to tell you that in the back, I always ordered the teacher's manuals as well, because the teacher's manuals also had the workbook in them. And even in homeschooling, I always ordered the teacher's manuals because it also had the text in it. And I would let the children have it and study it, because then they could find out what the proper answer was. It was in the back, and it was the teacher's manual. I think in our society we make people guess, try to make them feel dumb, then give them. There's 2 things I hate is the grade system, where they're in 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, etc. And I also hate the other grading system where you give them A, B, C, and D. That to me is stressful. I think if it's worth teaching, then you just teach them so they'll know. You don't have to test them and make them test their forgetfulness or their memory, especially when they keep cramming in new information, and then they'll test them on that, and then more information, then they'll test them on that. And of course, they've already forgotten the first part of the year and all that information, and I don't think it's effective at all. And I don't think it's a very kind and loving way to teach or to learn. But back to this workbook. You notice there's blue pages here every now and then. There's a blue page. Well, on the blue page, between all the chapters, the blue page was the assignment sheet. And this is what you could do for yourself. You don't really have to have this workbook. Some of these workbooks are pretty expensive, but it is complete the worksheet. Now, I think it was talking about one of these in here that they had. It says complete the worksheet. And it says, so here was the assignment. And we really enjoyed this because it was all about our homes. Follow your weekly schedule this week. And they'd show you how to have a schedule. What to do first thing in the morning, and what to, how to get yourself ready and how to get the day going. And so it says follow your weekly schedule. And then it says add 3 bright touches to your home this week. And they would explain in class, how you would do that. You would clean something, then you would put something on it, or put some kind of finishing touch was what they called it. And the other one was make a menu and follow it this week. And they'd show you how. And then it was record in your, you had a little booklet and you had to record it in, but they always had assignments at the end of every lesson. Now you didn't have to go to classes for this, but you could have this study at home. And then there was one on character here that I always enjoyed, and it was try to keep the house especially clean and orderly this week. And that would be all you'd have to think about. You wouldn't have to be thinking about, sewing a dress that week, but you would just do that. And another one was do something creative this week in the area of cooking or sewing or art. And then record how it increased your feeling of satisfaction or happiness. And so I always liked it because there was an assignment page in each one of these. And so if you're wondering what a workbook is, well, that's what a workbook is. And also I have, my mother was Canadian, and she loved Anne of Green Gables, and so did her mother. And her mother especially, because her mother was an orphan that came out on an orphan train from Nova Scotia, I believe, to Alberta. And so my mother made sure that we knew all about the Anne of Green Gables. And recently, I would say recently, because this was published in 1997, so there were a lot of things coming out of the Anne of Green Gables movie and the books. There was a renewed interest in it all, and had things to do in it, and for summer and for winter. And for example, there was one here about how to do pressed flower greeting cards. And I can remember when growing up on the homestead in Alaska, we had these boxes. They were passed from homestead to homestead. People would dig out something they wanted and put something they didn't want back in and pass them on to the next homestead. And there were always books there. And it was interesting to go through books, and there'd be a little pressed flower here and there. But I always asked, well, why did they do that? Well, they put them in cards. They made cards, and they also put them in scrapbooks. And this Anne of Green Gables book here, it's called the Anne of Green Gables Treasury, has a description of what to do. And it was always a delight to get a letter from someone, and there was a little pressed flower pasted on to one of the pages of the letter. And it had recipes in it. And this is like a workbook too, only there's nothing to fill out. But it could be made into one. All you would have to do is put a card, a blank card, or a piece of paper in it, and use it as though you were a student doing this, and write about it, or write the results, or in some way give yourself an assignment. Now, as far as winter goes, there are a number of, we tend to ignore getting ready for winter because summer speaks for itself. You don't have to buy books on how to enjoy the summer. You just get a book and head straight for the beach. And you just automatically want to eat outside. You don't have to have books that tell you what to do. But for winter, to make it more friendly, I always remembered my mother used to read us poetry books, and she had a big one called the Big Book of Family Poetry or something like that. It had a lot of witty, good poems in it. I haven't seen it in a while. I don't even know if I have it still. And she had it in her things, but it was so big and so heavy that I couldn't take it home, and I couldn't pack it in my suitcase. When I went to put away all her housekeeping and everything, I couldn't take it. I didn't even think that maybe I could have maybe mailed it to myself. I don't know what. You're not thinking straight, when you're going through your parents' things. And I want to, so I'm going to read from Edgar A. Guest today, because that's a winter activity. I mean, I don't think that in the summer people are really in the mood to sit around and read a book, or in the hot sun, or spend the day in the house. But in the winter, you may be spending the day in the house. So I wanted to make sure that I did show you a number of things that we have that help us out. This is called, it's a magazine called Winter Cottage, and it has really nice paper in it. And this one was from, I believe, 2013 or maybe 2012. But I kept it because these magazines are quite expensive. Like this one was $11 at the time. I'm sure it's gone up to $20 by now. But it's put out by Hoffman Media, which has a good reputation for good magazines. It's like a book. I mean, who would pay $12 for a book? And these magazines are real popular. And so at winter, you get them out, and they have activities in them. They have breads and soups to make, and they have also other ideas in them. So, and I always liked the back of them because there was a picture on the back that you could lay this on your coffee table, and it was pretty. It wasn't an ad. So it's called Winter Cottage, and there are current issues of this at Hoffman Media online. And then I've shown this to you so many times, cottagecore, but there are many, many books written called cottagecore that have great ideas in them. This is the one I got from the English lady online, and when winter comes, she has this divided into seasons. Everyone says there's 4 seasons, but I always suspected there were a lot more. I always think there's different sections within the seasons too. And this had how to make your own soap, and how to make a soup, how to knit, and how to make a patch to patch a hole in something. Here's one on how to make felt slippers. Well, this could be a workbook too. There's a little pattern there you could trace. You can make workbooks. And I always thought workbooks were delightful because they're so personal. And if I were to make a workbook for myself, it would be on, first of all, on self-improvement. All the things, when I was a teenager, I liked the self-improvement list was, I want to maybe improve my skin, or lose some weight, or maybe learn to speak better without stuttering, or I'd have this whole list of improvement, not being so shy around people or something like that. And I don't think it's too late for any of us to have our own self-improvement course and just pick out the things you want to do, things you'd want to learn. And this one was all about things that the last chapter was on things you could do in winter, and one was how to use old t-shirts to make a little round mat there, and just different things you might not have thought of, but you probably got older books than this that you could use and make your own workbook and make winter more friendly. The other one was this book from the 1800s. Now it's been reprinted, called The American Girl's Handy Book. It's been reprinted. So you can go and get one that's a brand new copy, but I would not, there's some that I would not recommend because the new publisher has put a little of an editorial in the front that isn't very nice. It kind of is disparaging of the era. And but if you find a good one, this one is divided into the seasons also, and it has a whole section on things that you can do in winter, and things that you can do. They even had a chapter on things that you could do with trash, and like boxes from your groceries, or how to make stained glass, and how to make paper, and all these things. And it was originally printed in the 1800s, but it's been reprinted with the same things. It has even a painting lesson in here, how to make things out of other things, and how to decorate a table, how to make homemade things. And so it would have the winter section, and that would be when my children were growing up and it was winter and I was homeschooling them. Well, we'd go to the winter section. Now this is a new one called Willow and Sage, and it is published by Stampington.com. Now Stampington used to be an original rubber stamp or acrylic stamp book on all the designs that people would submit, and this is just a much better idea. It's things like how to make rolled candles, how to make your own soap, how to use the scent of the season, and this is the winter issue. So they would have one in summer too. And they had a really nice have wintry projects here. And this is called Cozy Cabin. And how to make things that emphasize the sweetness of winter. We don't think of that much because, boy, it howls against my door, and don't want to go out there. And it talks about the scents that you can use, and the scents for the home, and many other opportunities to make things. Making your own soap, making your own lip balm, making bath salts, also things for the home that are also nice to look at. And those are two recent ones. Now I recently, and here's one by Gooseberry Patch. I need to replace it because it's been used so much, this viral binding is going. But it's called Celebrate Winter. So all through it you can see it's got how to make things, and they have little hints at the very bottom of everything. How to load up a tray of treats, and how to have these little winter celebrations in your home. And so anyway, this is called Celebrate Winter, and you can still get it. Don't know what year this was published, but Gooseberry Patch had a lot of nice books, and I think they're still publishing them. And I believe this was from 1996. It's like time stopped in 1996 and 97. That's where all my books stopped. Yeah, that's when homeschooling was finished. And then I have something really interesting for you here. And it's called Tilda's Winter Ideas. And I don't know if you've heard of the Tilda books, but if you're a sewist or a crafter, you probably have. She has the summer and the spring, and then she has one on the ocean. And she includes in the back patterns, and you trace over them through thin paper. You trace over them and make your own patterns. And there she has a house. And so this is like a workbook or a craft book that you can follow and make things for winter, for your home, to enjoy all these quiet things that winter has, a quiet atmosphere, a little bit different than summer, and to take advantage of that, you might be able to concentrate more on maybe making some things. And she has a little winter rabbit here, and he has a pattern for it. And so you can, I first heard of Tilda when I went to a fabric store, and I saw some of her books there, and she had So Beautiful for the Home, S-E-W, Beautiful for the Home. And I bought that book because I had a coupon, 50% off or something, and was so delighted with it. And I believe she's somewhere in Scandinavia, but it's so delightful to get this in English and at least have, and I like the quality. I like the quality of the pages. They're thick. The colors are nice, and she has her own doll pattern and her own house pattern and everything. But you could do stuff like that for yourself. You could invent a little story and then make the little animals and the house and everything to go with it. And now I want to talk to you about a book that I recently received. Oops, forgot one thing. I forgot to tell you about making your own magazine. Magazines are really expensive, and I'm always looking for something to send to my grandchildren. I thought, no, I can't do that anymore. I've got to be able to fit it in an envelope with an ordinary stamp. So I've been making magazines. You just get a piece of paper, kids. You fold it in half. You title it. You put your cover picture on it, and then you put a lot of stuff in it and turn it into a workbook if you want to. So this one is called Serenity because of the message of serenity in it, and it's called this November 2023. It's called Serenity Magazine, and it was for my granddaughter. And in case you think I'm really clever and I did that, I want to tell you how I drew this picture here. I had an old greeting card that I had saved from the 1970s because I thought it was so pretty, and it was a girl on a swing. And I always thought, well, maybe I'll be able to copy it or paint it or something. I never did. I ran across it the other day. So I want to tell you how I did it. You put the card up on a window where the light is coming in, like where the light is best during what time of day. You put that card up on the window with a little piece of removable tape. Then you tape a piece of computer paper or printer paper or something over the top of that. The light will come through and at least give you the outline of the card or the picture that you've got there. And you just trace around it, so at least you have the drawing. And then you take it all off, and then you can color it according to what it looks like. Okay, so anybody can do that and make your own light box, so to speak. Okay, so this was this was an answer to how can you make winter more friendly. So I wrote in it, and I also gave, and I made some for the boys too, and the boys had to do some puzzles, and I just made it all up. For instance, for the boys, I had them use it like a workbook. Fill out things and make rhymes. Choose words to make rhymes with, poetry. So I had them take this word, and it was create. How many words can you make from the word create? So you take one of the letters, and you mix it with some of the other letters and see if you can make a new word. And I think I got 16 words out of the word create. And you just look at it and you figure out create. So here were the answers. 8, crate, rate, eat, tree, are, trace, ace, race, tear, ear, tea, and treat. So, and there are probably more because they're very clever. You can probably figure out more. So I'll read to you, and I'll show you who the contributors were. My goodness, one of my friends is one of the contributors. Her name is Miss Lily of the Valley, famous pioneer author, and also a character of hers called Allison. And so Miss Lily, and who I gave this to, this is a magazine. It's just this much. Now for the future magazines, I just made them this small, and because I ran out of envelopes this size. So anyway, let me just read some of it. And it was draw a rose. And so I showed the first step, a little circle, the second step, and everything. And I just, and I'll show pictures of it on my blog for you if you want. And then I got into this seasonal thing. And this is what one of the contributors wrote. We love long summer days, don't we? Winter howls in like a lion, chasing us indoors, where we must dwell for many months. Summer, with its friendly weather, seems to end too quickly. Let us ask Allison what she likes about winter. Now remember, Allison was this pioneer girl that Miss Lily of the Valley invented for her book. So here's what she says. I love not having the myriad of activities summer demands. So, in winter, I sit in serenity, and of course the name of the magazine is Serenity. I sit in serenity with books and letters. I include cookbooks and art books among my favorite Jane Austen books. I sew up a storm when the temperature outside is uninviting. Yes, we used to go get a stack of fabrics, for the winter, and we sewed things for our home. We sewed placemats. We sewed chair cushions. We sewed wall hangings. Anything we wanted, we could actually, and when you start quilting and doing the applique type quilting, you make a scene, you can frame it, you can do many things with fabric. As the weeks wear on, I try doing this something the same in a different way every day, such as use a different teacup every day. Write an appreciation sentence in your day book or your journal daily. Wear a different skirt or apron every day. Add to a continuing story each day. Read from a poetry book each day. Make your bed and add something interesting on it, different each day. I think she's talking about toys or cushions. Try a new hairstyle each day or use a new hair clip each day. Try a new recipe each day. Can you add more ideas? And then, so she has a list here where she can add more ideas. And then here's an idea for lists. How many ideas for lists can you think of? So, grocery lists, to-do lists, ideas lists, have-to-do list, improvement list, and what other things can you think of for lists, things you need to do. So that's that, and it doesn't take too long to fill up this much, but you could make it smaller. You could make it card size, this size, and then you'd only have a little bit there to do. And you can make one for yourself. So now I have to tell you about my brand new book. And the reason I use books in these broadcasts, ladies, is because it's the safest thing to do. You don't have to talk about other people, and because of copyright. You know, if I start talking about my friends and all the stuff they were doing, they might want to charge me a fee. So I don't want to do that. So this is called Jane Austen's Table, and it is recipes inspired by the works of Jane Austen, and it's by Robert Chesley Anderson. Beautiful book. And I got it brand new. I've started to get my books brand new because I love thrift books, and I love Abe books, and I love Amazon and getting these, you know, the used books. But I have to be so careful here at the manse because it's a cinder block house. It tends to be a lot of moisture in the air, and I don't want to store things here that have any kind of a mildew smell or maybe an old smell or have anything on them. I have to be careful about everything, even patterns. I try to get things new if I can. And even fabric, I get new fabric. And bedding and things like that, try to get it new. Not saying that maybe it wouldn't develop a problem, but I prefer to have something new. And I really like this book here. Look at the pretty end papers. They're pink or peach. So I wanted to show you what it all looked like. And I can, this is called Picnics and Nuncheons. Remember, Brian Kozlowski wrote in his book, The Jane Austen Diet, about nuncheon. And I think it was lunch. I'm not sure how nuncheon got in the word there. But it was the middle of the day. It was the middle of the day lunch. And so that's the chapter I'm on right now, is the picnic chapter, and it was called Perfect Picnic Parcels, and it's all about how they could put a food inside of a crust or a bread or a pie, and it's all wrapped up already, and you know, you wouldn't have to dish it out or anything like that. And I love the drawings. I love the beautiful Regency drawings of the costumes of the time. So I'm going to read about picnicking Regency style. Now, when was this would be a quiz for those of you who want me to do a, let's say you're in my college, my school at Ashcombe, to do a literature recommendation of what you would have to read. I would suggest the Jane Austen books, and the Emma book was the one with the picnic, and I believe that was the one that had the picnic in it. And so I would also have you, because I had a very hard time at a young age understanding Jane Austen. That was when they had the old black and white movies, and they spoke so rapidly, and they didn't have any quiet space in them. They always filled up all the talking time. And so I would suggest you take one of the 1990s movies and watch it first so you can get an idea of what these stories are about and kind of understand them. When you read them, you can picture them a lot better. So this is called Picnicking Regency Style. I will try to include more pictures of this book on on the page. And they have a chapter on entertaining. And I just like having, I don't know if I will ever cook everything of all the cookbooks I have, but I want to try at least to have it. You know, I like to read it, and I can remember times when I wasn't feeling good, or my children were little, we were all tired, and I would lay down with them so they could take a nap, and I would read a cookbook, or read the instructions to a dressmaking pattern. Just read the instructions. So, picnicking Regency style. So now if you've got something to do, I hope that you will do it. I didn't mean to show you too much, but I will just put pictures on the page so you can go and look at some of these books. Picnics today are usually informal affairs. I have to stop there and tell you how disappointing I was to come out of an era like on the homestead. I wrote in my book about my mother's picnic basket. She had won that picnic basket. It looked like a little suitcase, and it was wicker. And she had won it at I believe it was a show or a raffle she went to. And we had it for years and years and years. And just seemed, it had pockets on the inside. It had little clasps here and there. It had those little sections in it. And she took it whenever we went outside. She took it. We'd walk a little ways away from the house. She had a blanket. We'd sit down and eat food. And oh, we just, what a treat that was. I don't know if she ever knew how powerful that was and how much that meant to us to go and do that. And I mentioned how I thought that the air had made the food taste better. So what a disappointment it was to then get invited to a modern day picnic. And I believe it was, I think it was years after I'd got married. We got to go, and they had it at a park, and we got invited by someone, and there were these people carrying these big clunky chests of ice and very unattractive containers with food. Of course, the food was wonderful. I mean, that's the thought that counts, right? But I just somehow missed the little red checked tablecloth and the picnic atmosphere. And a lot of companies now, especially in Australia, are creating the old-fashioned picnic with a cardboard replica of the picnic basket, and it's throwaway, but disposable, you know. But just has that atmosphere. People are reviving this idea of picnics, and I particularly like the Emma movie of the 1990s. There were two. One was A and E, and the other was Miramax, and both of them are very good and go according to the books. But there was a picnic in there. So, picnicking Regency style. Now, I did explain to you, did I not, the difference between the Regency and the Victorian. The Regency was named after the regent, I believe, which was someone that was put in place of, was King George, the one that lost the colonies, you know. And he promoted the gentleman farmer. He promoted more of the outdoor. He kind of brought people who were of the land up socially. And so, picnicking Regency style. Picnics today are usually informal affairs. And by the way, it doesn't bother me if you want to use this video to sleep by. People are having trouble sleeping or getting the rest that they need. You might as well, you know. I don't think it will indoctrinate you or anything. There's no subliminal whatever in it. But I think that some people have told me that they actually had no trouble falling asleep. So, and also, if you don't want to listen more than 10 minutes, I notice on the stats, I go and look, and the average amount of time is 20 minutes. And so most people are making their films 20 minutes, but I am not going to be able to set it up again. And once I have come in here and sat down, I don't want to stop and then, you know, start over again and do others. So just stop the video. You can do that and remember where you are, or sometimes it will remember for you, and you can continue another time. Okay? Perhaps we stuff a packet of sandwiches, some fruit, and a flask of tea in our backpack. We stop willy-nilly while out on our walk, sitting on a tree stump or a rocky outcrop, if we're lucky, and having packed the wrappers or orange peel back in our backpack, continue on our way after a scant half hour or so. If we or our parents had ever had a picnic basket and a blanket, they are stowed away in an attic or basement, long forgotten. I'll never forget, I had planned this wonderful picnic for my children, and my husband and I drove to the beach, which is about an hour away from here, or less than an hour away from here. And it was hotter than blazes here at the house, at the manse. And so we were so looking forward to the beach, but when we got there, we couldn't see it. It was totally fogged in. It was wet and cold, and no one wanted to get out of the car. And the picnic basket was one of those old wooden ones with the flat top, and it sat between some of us in the car, and we had to figure out how to get the lid off and not bother somebody, but we passed around the napkins, and then we passed around the food, and we sat in the car and ate it. And it was so disappointing because I had this vision of using the tablecloth and going to the beach and sticking the umbrella in there and the whole scene. So I just came home and painted a picture of what it should have been like. And now you can get these neat cars that have a hatch in the back that raises up, and it's kind of like camping. And you can join kind of an awning or a tent onto it, and you can get outside and still be under shelter. So the Regency picnic was, by contrast, formal and highly organized. Remember those big baskets that the servants were carrying up the hill in the movie Emma? Involving at least as much preparation as any grand dinner. They took their food seriously, you know. And I was writing some of the things that we used to do that we don't do anymore, and how serious our meals were, how serious the food situation was. You just didn't have snacks. You didn't grab something and walk around eating it. It all had a proper cup of tea with it, and that it all had a meaning. And so it was kind of like that there was I don't want to say ceremonial, but it was thoughtful. Everything was thoughtful. And even if you were washing your hands, there was thoughtfulness that went into it. Spend a little time thinking about it. And even if you were to go for a walk or take a nap or get up, it all had more of a thoughtful, mindful focus in it that is different today. And dressing up was all part of it. And I usually start these videos out telling you to dress up for your home. And I was talking to a friend recently about this, and she was telling me that she decided she was going to dress up first thing before anything else because it changed everything for her. And I don't even like to go out and get the mail without being presentable. I know. When I was younger, see, when you're younger, you can get away with walking around in your pajamas. You still look gorgeous, you know. But when you become more vital, it's not quite like that. And I don't even like to write a letter unless I'm dressed to the nines. And remember, I don't know if you remember, I don't like to talk too much about, you know, worldly things, but Hollywood, I don't know if it was Hollywood or if it was the English English actor, and I forget what his name was, James someone, and his mother was Helen Hayes. What was his name? He played in Hawaii Five-0, James MacArthur. And so Helen Hayes was his mother. And he was interviewed on something to do with her because she had passed away, and he said that the one thing that was so impressive about her that affected his life was that when she went to the studio, she was dressed to the nines. And he said, as time wore on, young people who were just coming into the business would go to the studio practically barefoot and, you know, dirty fingernails and hair unkempt and and old t-shirts and cutoffs, jeans, things like that. And he said his mother still stuck with her ways, and she was dressed to the nines when she went to the studio. And so look, this is your studio. Your home is your studio. And I don't like to, my friend was telling me she's getting to where she does not want to even go into her kitchen unless she's dressed to the nines, because it's ceremonial now with her. It's important to her. It also makes you feel a little bit more dignified and stand up straighter, and not look like you are not prepared or polished or refined. And it's hard to explain unless you're experiencing it yourself. But I always remembered that. He said mother was dressed to the nines while everyone else was walking in with, you know, and it was during a generation when people were rebelling against being dressed up. And I thought that was so remarkable that he was so impressed with that. The site was carefully chosen, perhaps under the shade of an ancient oak, and preferably with a picturesque view. The food was lavish and plentiful, and there was furniture, if not actual chairs and stools and a table, then at least a large rug and cushions. And remember, in that the older version of the movie, A Room with a View, trying to think of who it was the same guy that wrote Captain Horatio Hornblower, and the aunt she brought her Macintosh squares, which were, you know, pieces of wool or a cushion to sit on at this picnic, and she gave the squares to her niece, and she says, "Oh, don't worry about me. I'll sit on the ground." She said, and I do not have a cold. So, and there was furniture. All this involved a lot of labor, with manservants required to carry the picnic baskets up to the chosen site. I have seen some of these old picnic baskets, but now they call them, if you see them in an antique store, they think they're coffee tables or trunks, you know, just blankets that you store blankets in, but I think some of those older ones were actually picnic baskets, which explains why it would take 2 men to haul them to the picnic site. So it said it was labor intensive. They laid out the dishes, plates, and silverware and then cleared it all away again. The Regency picnic was both preposterous and wonderful. One modern commentator has even called it a way of performing Britishness, an expression of national identity. But you know, you don't have to wait until the trend comes back around, or you don't have to wait until there's a Regency reenactment. You can do this yourself. You can do it even if there's just you, or just you and a few other people in your house. And even if they don't want to participate, you can go out and do it, and take a little sketch of it, take a picture of it, or write about it in your journal, or sit out there and have the picnic and then record your opinion of it, do a review for yourself, and see how you might improve it next time. You don't have to wait for people. We don't have to be dependent on people to do things we've always wanted to do. Remember the fog fashions I had. I got to think, I just wish the world was different, you know, and they had this and they had that. And then one day I kind of woke up and said, you know, I'm going to make a bunch of fashions for wearing in the fog, and had such a good time. I even had fog tea to go with it, and we'd have tea foods that were foggy or the color of fog, a lot of white things. And so the late Georgian picnicking craze was just one facet of the phenomenon known as Romanticism. Other facets included the nature poetry of figures like William Wordsworth, 1770 to 1850, whose famous I Wandered as a Lonely Cloud was published in 1807. I'll try to include that poem on the page. The stirring landscape art of J.W. Turner, 1775 to 1851, as well as the popularity of amateur watercolor painting, the cult of the picturesque view and scenic touring, the fashions for country walking, and even for open-air swimming, and a new fascination with the sea and the seaside. And apparently Jane Austen's last novel that was unfinished was called Sanditon, and it was about a health spa resort on the beach to help people get their health back and get fit again. And so I think this is so interesting. It was talking about touring fashions and walking fashions, and there are some old paintings you can still get. You can still find the hiking clothing of women of the 1800s, and the paintings of them going on mountain walks and mountain paths, wearing maybe a much sturdier skirt, and there was also travel clothes. There was different kind of clothes for different things, different activities. Whereas I think today, if you had a pair of shorts and a tank top, people just probably wear it anywhere and everywhere. There are still some places, though, where people do dress a little bit more appropriately for the activity. So, we find many of these romantic pastimes and tropes in Jane Austen's novels, though they are often gently mocked or shown to be problematic if taken too seriously. Marianne Dashwood's romantic walks lead her to a fall and a sprained ankle, and eventually to a broken heart. The stroll to view the sea and lime in Persuasion ends in disaster when Louisa Musgrove falls from the cob. In Sanditon, seaside bathing is exposed as not so much more than a money-making venture designed to exploit people's health worries. And so too in Emma, a picnic that appears superficially idyllic ends up exposing the underlying tensions and disconnections between the characters. The outing to Box Hill is perhaps the most famous picnic in literature, along with the even more fateful picnic at Hanging Rock. Just is the most famous picnic in art as ever. And it says here that at the Box Hill picnic, for all participants' expectation of pleasure, disharmony reigns, and this leads to what is perhaps one of the most painful moments in all of literature, when Emma, in an attempt to enliven the proceedings, makes fun of Miss Bates, wounding that vulnerable woman deeply. At least the picnic provides the hidden turning point of the novel as the heroine begins to become belatedly aware of her wider human responsibilities. So I thought I would read that to you, but it does give some really good Jane Austen-y type things in it, but it also has the wonderful food. So, ladies, let me just check around here and see if there's anything else. Well, I did want to read to you The Do's and Don'ts of Yesterday by Eric Sloane. I've been reading this to you. It's for boys, but it had a section in the back for girls, too. This is really good. This is really good, and I begin to notice more. It says, don't be loud of voice in public places. A retiring, modest demeanor may have ceased to be fashionable, but it is as much a charm in women today as it ever was. Of course, if you've lost somebody in the store, it's okay to shout out their name. So here's another one. Don't, young ladies, giggle or affect merriment when you feel none. I do get tired sometimes of that nervous laughing. At the end of every sentence, women seem to think they need to laugh to show everyone that they're not too serious, but we don't need to be doing that. If you reward a bon mot with a smile, it is sufficient. There are young women who, every time they laugh, cover their faces with their hands or indulge in some other violent demonstration, to whom we say, don't. And he's written don't in really big letters here. And this is Eric Sloane's The Do's and Don'ts of Yesteryear. And several people that have read this have told me, oh, and here's how to make a paper cup. Do you remember back in the olden days when they had the water fountains at school and some of us didn't want to drink out of them? You could take a piece of paper or even a paper towel and fold it a certain way, and it would hold water long enough that you could get a drink out of it. And I think everybody needs to know how to make a paper cup out of a piece of paper. Not sure how that would be successful or not. And it has crafts and things in it too. And so how to use a compass, how to make a 5-pointed star with a piece of paper. So see, this could be another winter activity book. It's mostly for boys though, things that boys can do anywhere. So I want to be sure that I got everything here that you would be interested in, and I hope that you will make life at home as wonderful as you possibly can, so you won't want to be going out there to everything else that can ultimately be disappointing. And if you are homeschooling, or even if you're not, look at it as your education. When you start doing that, it changes for the children also. So that way you'll have an attitude of discovery. And I heard about one mother that was new to homeschooling, and she asked her son to bring her something that he had read in one of his books. And so he read it to her, and she liked it so much. It was something to do with science. And she said, well, let me see that for a minute. And she said, you stir the soup and I'll read it. And so she started reading this book. And when the father came home, he said, what did you learn? He said, I learned how to stir the soup, and Mom learned about the science. So you do get more of a youthful mindset if you look at it as your education as well, that you're just as interested in it as they are. So ladies, I hope that you have a good day today, that you got a lot done while you listened, or that you got a nice good rest. And thank you all for praying for me to be here more often. I'm going to try to do that. And I always feel like I need to be smarter, have my house completely put together, and younger and stronger and very much improved before I come. But I will talk to you later. Stay close to Christ. Goodbye.